Hello, I am Radagast, at your service. This is probably the most unpleasant video I'll ever make, and I hope so. The title of tonight is About Ron Speaks from the Heart, What Happened? Which is a play on the words of Ron's tonight's video, which is Ron speaks from the heart about what's happening. And again, this is about Ron speaks from the heart. What happened? Now I know, we all know, anybody who's a regular watcher of Ron, that his health has not been good. And that's always been a concern of ours. All of us, the collective ours. And so with the he's always been a true vision of peace member. In many ways, he's part of the the founding. I mean, he and the ambassador were the heart and soul of it. And I know that their early dialogues together helped shape what became the true vision of peace. And it is true vision of peace, not vision of true peace. It's a true vision, a vision of peace. Because how we get to that peace has to have the vision of how to produce that. And so it took me 12 hours and a 4-hour nap to try and get to a place of composure after listening to the video. I was traumatized, and I say that with a smile because with me, I mean, trauma for me is always something that catches me unawares, and then something I can usually deal with pretty quick. And anything that happens at the psychological, emotional level is really more of a magic. I mean, when we see words, like if somebody says something to us and then we turn them and they, oh my God, you wounded me. My thing is when somebody says the words, it's like kind of a magical act because the words are just really sound, so they're fourth dimensional magical things that get hurled at you. And so when they come here, it's almost like, I hope you don't mind I didn't cut. I mean, it's how you want. It's really words are magic. So it's really a matter of not whether or not you let somebody else's spell hit you when they say something or not. If they say something really cruel, it's just like, whoa, they really tried to put one on me. Being a human and having feelings, and the feelings, one of the feelings that arose as an emotion that I had to dissipate so that I could be clear enough, was the feeling of anger. And there was no way I knew it would be irresponsible to speak from being emotional. I can get my emotion processed, get that whirlwind calmed down without knowing why. But also now having my perspective. That's why the storm abates. It really, but there are certain organic things. I mean, anger as a condition is very bad for your health, and it's also why it's considered one of the 7 deadly sins, what I call the 7 archontic portals. So of course, knowing during any time I'm a little bit angry, I certainly am more open to thoughts that would not be my own. Where once I am recomposed and I know of that source, but I've already been through that. I mean, that was an experience I needed to process. But again, it wasn't a state, knowing that one of my portals was open, that I thought it would be responsible to speak. And knowing our portals, knowing that the different portals we have. I mean, to me, look at the 7 deadly sins and think of them just as states that if you are while you're holding them, you're very open to what I call archontic suggestion. And even the jinn might mess with you, but yeah, I mean, our energetic immediate environment is a little populated. It's kind of like if you were to take some food and stick it into the water, which is another dimension, and fish would be attracted. And it might be a lot of one kind of species of fish, but there'd be a few fish, and they would come over and they would pick, and then they would process. Another one come over, pick, and it's not like they're all just right there around you. It's, you know, but when food's available, the fauna, or the animal life of that ecosystem shows up whenever food shows up. And when we open one of those portals, one of those 7 deadly sins, again, that deadly sin is just, I'm using what the term is, so if you want to look at them for meditation, please don't think of, again, not transgressions against any kind of ethical code other than one's own personal ethics. I mean, these states will take you out. Being in these states will tend to make you be unethical, and certainly open to unethical suggestion. So back to Ron. I'm kind of almost dancing around it. The thing that made me angry was when Ron was speaking about the woman who called him about some misunderstanding or confusion she had about what she thought and her belief bubble was, and what either the facts were, or how the facts were also misunderstood against the original preconception. Because a lot of people are coming into all of this with a certain amount of preconception, and some of it has been from other voices other than True Vision of Peace, or even just misunderstanding what the ambassador was saying. So people will come with a certain, belief system, and then when facts are presented that don't correspond with the belief system, now the real thing would be like understanding, if you're really mobile, what you're doing is, okay, you want clarity, so as you get facts, then that clash with what you had thought, well, now you have new facts. So so you have a choice to either take the new fact in and put it, so you are working with what you supposedly want, the real deal, or you can resist it because you already had a preconceived idea of what the facts were, and now there's a fact war. And then, of course, whether or not the fact is a fact or a fact that was misunderstood is another thing. A case in point would be, I guess, the 51% ownership of the businesses, and thinking that, I think what people might be misunderstanding is that because they're 51% owners, they get 51% profits, and not understanding that this is owner as a holding thing, that basically you cannot sell this business before you own it, and you can own it in total upon repayment of your interest-free loan that has your own terms. And that's the other thing, people heard 3 years. Well, I guess depending on what you're borrowing, 3 years might really work for you. This is obviously there's certain kinds of schemes, but this is a fit the scheme to the purpose, because these are humanitarian funding. And this is make sure it works, not make sure that the money gets back, because it isn't about getting the money back right away. This is really the whole thing about paying the money back is this system, it keeps on refilling itself. And this allows this way the funds never ever go down. And there can it's like a bunch of reservoir systems keeping in balance. So I think that was one thing that maybe wasn't made clear enough about what ownership is, because we have our own idea that when people own something, they're taking something, and rather than this is more like holding in trust, so that whatever it is supposed to be, whatever's being purchased gets purchased, and then it becomes yours, and then what you do with it is what you do with it. So what made me angry? When Ron brought up this woman's misunderstandings, confusion, personal pain, and apparently when in a private phone conversation, which most, unless you have another person on, but I mean, whether you have 1 or 4 people in on any conversation, it's a private, confidential conversation. with usually an agreement with people that anything that might be said is either, oh yeah, it's all open, or it's this, but you know, things are private until they're not. And you know, my own concepts of courtesy, and not to mention also the profession I'm in with confidentiality, but just the whole concept of when you have a private conversation, you both have the right to expect confidence in the other. That's why it's confidentiality, because it's based on confidence that each of you understand that this was a private conversation, and you allowed yourself the freedom to not guard. And even if you're feeling emotionally, you speak emotionally because you know you're speaking to a confidant and they understand. And you know, you might be having a bad day and you're saying things you wouldn't otherwise say, but you're you know, you're speaking to a friend, so you know you can be as real as you are, even if that particular real for that moment isn't the prettiest. And that's how I hold anybody. I mean, that's how I hold my conversations. I expect that from the people I talk to. People can expect that from me. That's, I don't know whether now in the days of Facebook, where it seems like there is no privacy, maybe there's a different mentality, but Ron is from my generation, not the Facebook generation, although I know he's on Facebook and maybe he's morphed. Because when he decided to tell the when he was speaking to the ambassador on the phone and mentioned what this woman's concerns were, and he shared the ambassador's answer with his hundreds or thousands of people, he stepped over the bounds of confidentiality. I mean, this is a private conversation, and even had it been very complimentary, even if the conversation had been like, oh, this woman is particularly bright, it looks like she'll be one of the first people to get funded, that would still be confidential. Even though it would be great news, it would still be something in confidence until it's decided that this, you know, and once again, not about getting expectations up. So this isn't my anger. I mean, I'm quite sure it would be, if it had been positive, I still would have been like, oh man, come on, can't we even, you know, don't we know that once again there are private conversations. They're not secrets, they're private. And largely because, if anything, you know, with privacy, usually when it gets out, nobody's life was in danger. It's in secrets that somebody's life or reputation or something is in danger. You know, it's not like the ambassador has used the word ignorant before. And last night, I think Ron really proved how ignorant people can be, because he was completely ignoring the sanctity of a confidential conversation. And I mean, it's bad enough if you take a confidential conversation and share it with a room full of friends, but when Ron shares with his room full of friends, that means hundreds or thousands of people, depending on the viewership of that video. And so that was my first stunner. It was because you know he speaks affectionately. Oh, the ambassador's my friend, and you know, I don't know if he said he loves him or has affection for him. I thought about going to check what words he used, but I realized I couldn't watch it a second time. And but I know that, you know, they've been friends for months. I mean, not and a real, like, again, they've butted heads, and of course butting heads with Ron is pretty easy. And that seemed to strengthen your friendship, because that's what friendship is: the ability to be who you are, to be your authentic self. And if Ron was being his authentic self last night, then there's almost, I mean, then that would be very sad. But I think it might have been his authentic self. I've always said that I trust everybody. I trust them to reveal who they really are. And also to not be overly dramatic. Who you really are is who you really are at that moment. It's not like, oh, who you have become. No, it's who you've become in the moment. But maybe, did you really become that, or were you really that and hadn't yet faced that self, and now this mirror showed up and to me reveal a little bit of self-deception. I mean, Ron said he was speaking from the heart. To me, the heart is wisdom, not emotion. You know, it's wisdom, it's compassion, and it's understanding, it's gnosis. And he did not have the wisdom to hold his friend's confidence. I mean, and then even with the woman who he was representing, did she really deserve to hear, in this case, a less than complimentary statement? Did she really need to hear that? I mean, if I was talking to a friend of mine about somebody in the middle and they were particularly harsh, when I got to them, my sense of diplomacy would be, you know, to try and get the message, but it doesn't have to be in its raw form. And then also, the other thing is I might say, oh, my friend, you know, we all know the ambassador, as Ron has shared, oh, the ambassador and I have both been ill. Yeah. But I mean, again, the ambassador being ill, I think, I will say, has been overstated. Really quite a lot. I mean, we're all dealing with things, but to say ill or this, you know, again, we're making it. And so I couldn't understand why he would even want to say that to the woman in that form, because it wasn't nice. I mean, who's getting lifted up here? I mean, where are we? What was the purpose of that delivery? Was it to be the knight for this woman? And we all know Ron, you know, a lady comes in the picture, it's like, oh, maybe we can hook up. I mean, was this to impress her? I'm your knight against my friend? You know, the followers who all think you're going down the wrong road, you're reassuring them that you're not, you know, that you'll speak out against the ambassador. It's one thing to speak out against concepts. It's another thing, again, to violate privacy, and especially in a violation that doesn't lift anybody up. And so, as I'm riding through that shockwave, and when he gets to speaking about true vision of peace, who we thought he was one of us, he referred to us as they. You know, do I think that they will succeed? And I guess it was not really, but again, Ron has a you know, a kind of defeatist place, because if you're anytime you identify as a victim, you can only be a victim if you've been defeated. For those of us who do not accept victimhood, it's game on. I mean, yeah, you're beating my ass, but it's game on. And you know, and the whole thing, when you're defeated, you're always looking to be saved because you've already conceded defeat. So it's like, you know, there's a whole mentality that really needs to get looked at. And even, you know, the culture that Ron has come into. I mean, one of the things that we as Westerners don't understand is that, why don't they do this? Why don't they do this about this? And if they own the Federal Reserve, why not this? And a big part of it is the culture of not making people look stupid, which we might know as saving face. And I would have to say Ron certainly did not save any face for the ambassador tonight. I mean, I did not understand that at all. But there's a big part of why things move slowly is saving face and also respecting sovereignty. I mean, they might own the Federal Reserve, but it's in the United States, and it's in the United States monetary system. So there's only so much one can do, even if you own it, without respecting the sovereignty of nation. And a lot of people may not understand how nations like China respect the sovereignty of nations. And that's why we also say, oh, well, China will deal with this country with human rights abuses. That's because that's their issue. They want to do business. And they will cut the best business deal Very often they can be generous, but again, there's always a sizing up. I mean, there are people who undervalue themselves, there are people who are very reasonable, and certain people who overvalue themselves. Or, you know, or in some cases it's just greed. But that's one of the, so that's one of the things that confuses us, is also as Americans, because we really don't respect nation sovereignty. We backed the Iraqi war. They were not, you know, because we thought, oh, there's a problem there, so we'll just go bust that country up. I mean, Libya, oh, there's a problem there, go bust that country up. That's not respecting sovereignty. And so the fact that there's enough Americans, especially, I mean, the majority of Americans supported the Afghani and the Iraqi war. So there isn't the understanding of sovereignty, you know, and now that the United States is the Iraq and Libya, from, you know, like, oh, our government, somebody do something about it. What are they supposed to do? Is they're supposed to form a coalition of the willing to come to the United States and liberate us like they liberated Iraq? I mean, so there's some I think there's some confusion, and you know, maintaining boundaries. Okay, so yeah, so I want to get to maintaining boundaries, but talking, because this actually is about a boundary. So when Ron spoke of true vision of peace from his perspective of them, and referring to us as they, and did he think they would succeed? Regardless of what his opinion was, that wasn't important. But it was the language that he used, as Dylan might say. And the language that he used was not inclusive. Like, in words, he was not a we. And that was a shock to me as a True Vision of Peace team member who thought he was one of our team members, referred to us as they. So that was like kind of like the double whammy for me with Ron's video tonight, was his seeming to not treat the ambassador as a friend, and then furthermore, out of the blue, apparently not being in the team, and we knew he was like kind of like on sick leave. And but again, you go to True Vision of Peace, and there's his face. I mean, Ron has, like I said, has been the heart and soul, along with the ambassador, of creating a lot of this awareness. Dave Schmidt created a kind of more business awareness for good. I'm not going to say for bad, for good or bad, because for the capable people, it was great advertisement. I mean, the kind of people who Dave attracted were more business oriented, and again, where you need business orientation to run businesses, humanitarian or otherwise. So, and then I'm starting to think also, like, we're supposedly, like, we're battling the cabal. I mean, from the True Vision of Peace, the cabal is an obstacle, and yeah, it is an obstacle, but it isn't. The daily challenges are coming from the non-cabal. And I was thinking about that. It's like, yeah, most of it, I mean, it's not like, the cabal is a general nuisance, but it's not like coming after us personally. Who's coming after us somewhat personally? And, it's the people who are following the story. And then I said, I wonder, because again, we call ourselves a community, but how many of us really know each other? We might know our names. We see this, show up from time to time. And maybe wonder, gee, maybe some of the commenters who are the most, the squeakiest wheel. I wonder if they're cabal. There's all kinds of, paid trolls on the internet to interrupt discussions. And I'm really starting to think that some of the more cognitive dissonant stuff could be, in fact, people trying to insert confusion where there are people trying to find their bearings. It's totally understood, but there's some people, as people are trying to find direction, somebody offering the wrong directions would be very useful to those who would like to see this succeed, this not succeed, owing to the normal human dysfunction. And those who know how to operate the human dysfunction go for the emotions. People who come from a lack or a victim type of mentality, or very because they're disempowered, are very easily triggered about any illusions of power. You know, all you have to do is take anybody you want to target and set them up a little bit higher. You know, like make it about like, oh, they don't really want a dialogue. Try to set some separation, and right away, those disenfranchised people immediately set them up as kind of like their enemy. And so it's very easy for people to come into a comment section and do that. You know, set a few words, get people thinking in a few ways, and that can create divisions. So that's something that has to be considered when dealing with comments. Yeah, you know, and the very valid stuff is, again, that people from their original information sources, and then how we filter things through what we want to hear, what we think we heard, I mean, very honest things, can come up with scenarios that are not correct. But sometimes the scenarios we've created, we actually get emotionally attached to, because it's the one we want. The one we created is actually the one we want, or maybe rather than the one that is. And so then when somebody finds out what is, and it's not with what they want, there is a unhappiness. And so it's like, why doesn't reality correspond with my beliefs, kind of thing? And that's, you know, that's something. It's just, if you're looking for what's happening in this world we're constructing, there's a certain kind of consensus reality. And if you're going to come into an energy field, you have to have sympathetic resonance with that coherence. And that's just the ways of reality and nature. Yeah, I already spoke. Each case, I mean, you know, each case is individual, and negotiable terms. No strict banking structure. This is much more old world. This is an organic, old world, almost like you know your banker type of structure. You know, this is something that nobody's used to. This is, again, when we think of banking, we're immediately often going to think about the banking that we are currently under, which is being in a spider's web with spiders picking at your body. Where Western banking is about spiders' webs, Eastern banking is about a Silk Road, and for all to, I mean, and it's based on open lines of commerce and flow and ideas, and I mean, it's a rich world of culture. I mean, I don't know how much common people think about ballet. Ballet is really great. So is the music. I mean, and just imagine a world where that actually was something that was affordable, because it's not about high-paid people, for, you know, high-paid musicians for high-paid people, because this is, you know, the culture. But the thing is, maybe the masses of people think ballet is boring. They'd rather have football. So, you know, there's a difference in tastes. Negotiable terms, 50% details for planners. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole thing that we're also, you know, I guess there's a lot of people who are not you know, who are curious, but they're not the planners, but they still want to know all the details. And that's what curiosity does. Curiosity wants some details. But a big part is right now, as things are starting to build and more questions coming in, it's going to be important, like what questions are about what part you can play, as opposed to just, you know, I haven't figured out my part, but can you give me a few more details? And of course, we'll do our best, but there's been a little bit of micromanagement, I think, an attempt on our part to once again to be transparent, to be in communication. And the comment section is open because the communication is two-way. And you know, we have a newsletter. We sent out a letter the other day. I make videos, and so it's all about communication. This is, you can't build a new world without talking to each other, and it's about opening up the dialogue that is so important. Somebody's alarm just went off, and but it'll stop in a minute. This is not business as usual. I mean, this is a completely different. I mean, it's to say it's not. The key word is it's not business as usual, and that's just something. And part of it is there are things that can be learned from the old way, but this is also about building a new way, because the communication, the fact I can make a video and talk to you, the fact that anybody can talk to anybody in minutes. You know, the iPhone, good or bad, allows people to be in real-time communication. This enables a network across the globe that can happen at the ground level. And at the ground level, the people with the ideas can get the funding. So I mean, there has never been a more amazing time to not only save humanity, but to save humanity there has to be the net that can save them. And right now all there is a spider web. So we have to build, you know, the Silk Road. That is the new home. And is there any Merrick? Yeah, I got about that Silk. Yeah, I think I got everything. Yeah, Silk. I like to think of you know, right now we're building out the veins and capillaries, where the circulation, which would be the funds right now initially, but it's also the energy. I mean, there's the whole moving forward with the ideas and building the infrastructure, and then once some infrastructure is built, once there's actually some coordination, then you can flex a little muscle because you'll have the circulation to do it, and then you know you get your legs and you start to walk. This can happen is really quickly. Right now, it's really about a lack of ideas, or lack of ideas that are not getting there. Because again, look, you know, we're in this community. It's not like we're talking to Wall Street. But also Wall Street's grown up in a certain headset that they might not be able to break out of, and anything that they would put forward would have their illness in it. So this is about tapping those who either never considered it but are capable, and those who run small businesses. I mean, you can do this with a small business concept and just scale it out. That's in Sun Tzu's The Art of War. He just said, you know, whether it's 10 men or 10,000, it's just a matter of scale. Okay, I guess that's going to be it. So yeah, to sum this up, you know, Ron informed us tonight that he's not with True Vision of Peace, and we didn't know that. And so we found out in the video. And I mean, again, I don't know whether Ron was conscious that's what he was saying. I really don't. I mean, I didn't hear him say, like, I'm not with them, but his language said that we're they and he's him. So that sounded like that's not his exclusion of the use we when talking about True Vision of Peace and referring to True Vision of Peace as they is a clear indication that he is not in True Vision of Peace, in his own words. So I guess, you know, that's about it. It's been it was a shocking day for me, pretty much over my trauma, which would have been the anger. I feel educated because, you know, there was a certain, you know, I still trust Ron. I just now, you know, again, I trust everybody to reveal who they really are. And so I'm not sure about, you know, after this, I'm quite sure Ron wouldn't want to have a private conversation with me, but I'd be careful about what I said. All right. Like I said, this has definitely been my least pleasant video I've ever made. But I hope I negotiated with grace. So before all else, I see the God within you. Be well. God bless you.